Chase, you go to a restaurant. The restaurant offers you spice level 1 through 5.
Oh shit. Okay.
What are you picking?
So I think it slightly depends on what the food is. Like, are we at a chicken restaurant? Is this like an Asian restaurant? What are we?
I'll let you pick.
Because I think my answer would be different. So for like a fried chicken place, I would probably, if it's my first time there, I'd probably go, just give me the 3. Let's see what your middle is. But I think if it's a place I've been before and I like it, I probably bump up into a 4. Like I'm not a superhero here. I'm not trying to be crazy. I'm not a 5 man, but I enjoy the spice. Now, if it's Asian spicy, I think is a lot different than other kinds of spice. It's like that can fuck me up in ways that I'm not used to.
Oh, dude.
So I might go a little bit lower on that. I've had some very spicy Asian food, which I incredibly enjoy. In fact, there's I was gonna say there's a place I should take you. You took me on my birthday, Cake Zone down in St. Louis. If anyone wants to go.
Are you gonna talk about that beef jerky?
It's so fucking good. So here's the thing. I ate that beef jerky. Like I got that delivered to my house a couple times. And the last one was like, I don't know, like a month ago. I got it. And it is these little strips of beef jerky for people who don't know. That is covered in some real spice, but also chopped up with those like red chili peppers. And the problem is the red chili peppers are brown and the beef jerky is brown. And all the strips are generally uniform size. And sometimes, because you're using chopsticks, because they're too orangey to like really pick up with your fingers.
Sometimes you get the beef, sometimes you get the jerky.
And until it hits your mouth and go, oh, that's a different. I think I fucked up.
Yes.
So here's what I did though. I ate all the beef jerky from the little tub that they gave me when I got it delivered, and then I just kept the peppers, like the rest of the stray peppers. And then what I did, I put them all in my food processor, and I chopped them up even finer. And now, like that stuff, that has a shelf life of forever. So now what I do is just I have this little tub, and anytime I go to make one of the instant ramens, I just dump like a very small spoonful in there, and I'm like, all right, fuck me up, let's do it.
And it's great. God,
I love it. It's fantastic. It is up my ramen game 1,000%. I love it.
There is I don't know the name of it off the top of my head. There's a company that sells like a spice container of dried ramen toppings. I would recommend that, and I'd recommend everything but the bagel seasoning, and put both of those on your.
I'm not an everything bagel guy. I'm not a bagel guy generally, but I'm definitely not an everything bagel guy.
This is just like sesame seed, black sesame seed, dried garlic chips.
Okay.
It's just a good seasoning.
Okay.
Honestly, like throw that on some chicken that you put in the oven. It's fantastic. I will skip the spice myself. Let's put that out there.
Really?
0 or 1.
Huh.
I do. I hate spicy food. I am the biggest pussy when it comes to spicy
interesting.
food.
I have an uncle that's very similar, but he is. I think he would give you a run for your money, because I remember like talking to him about like, hey, let's go to a restaurant, like let's go to a Mexican restaurant. And he's like, I don't know, a little too spicy. I was like, you can order anything at the Mexican restaurant. He thinks
mayonnaise is spicy.
Yes,
that's how my mom is. My mom can't handle any of it.
And I'm like, okay, well, I guess we can just grab a burger.
I should say I can do some spice. Like it's weird. Like when I get Indian food, I like some of the chutneys and some of the sauces that I'll dip my naan in. Like that's got a little heat to it for sure. And like I'll maybe do like a 1 or a 2 on my. I'm sitting here like, whoa, 1 or a 2. I'm getting real spicy on my pad thai, but I don't want to fucking sweat and feel terrible while eating and then after. If you get my drift.
Yes, I will definitely tell you. Once I hit my mid-30s, the body does not process the spicy food like it used to,
No.
and it's led to some issues, but I can't stop because I like it going in too much.
If I had a nickel.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of things we can't stop, episode 381, if you can believe it, of the Casual Hour.
I cannot believe it.
We are here to tell you about video games, believe it or not, and not just hot
Maybe
food.
you are.
Well, I think we both will. But tonight we've got a couple new games to talk about. We're going to also do our weekly check-in on the games we've been playing, which, by the way, we're going to get to hear how the sausage gets made. Chase, I'm going to add a tab in our what you've been playing depository or whatever you want to call it. And if you check the box next to a game that you've already talked about, I'm going to have it to where it just brings anything with a check mark into
that's so useful. I will live in that section.
So I'm going to add that into we use Notion to build our show.
I feel bad because every time we do this for the last handful of weeks, because I'm not playing a whole lot of new games right now. Like we have our section of your what you've been playing section. I'm looking at it right now, and Bobby always has like 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 different games
depending on the day.
And it used to be that there was a section where it was just like, oh, here's the stuff where Chase can put it in. Here's the stuff where other people can put it in. And now I don't know what happened, but it shifted to hidden group. I'm like, yeah, I fucking know Chase ain't going to write shit in there.
No. I don't know why you're hidden. I can fix that. You know why it's hidden? It's hidden because you don't have anything.
Right. It didn't used to be like that. I don't know if something changed or what. It doesn't matter. But yes, the point is, I keep not adding anything in there, and I feel bad because I know you use it to be like, oh, hey, we're talking about a thing in the corner of the screen. Right now, we're talking about spicy food. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I feel bad not having that information for Bobby, but also the answer is, well, I've just been playing a little bit more Paper Mario. There's really not much to say.
So whenever we changed our formatting of the show, one of the things that Chase and I talked about was spending a little bit more time, like being okay. Like we talk a lot about the podcast curse and how we feel like we have to play new stuff, but we feel like it's important to give weekly updates on the things that we're sticking with. Because that's hard. Like it's hard to stay with things, especially when there's a lot of new stuff. So I want to add in a section on here that's like just our weekly check-ins. Like I'm playing V Rising still. So I'll have a little segment on here that we'll break out. You'll see that here soon. But outside of those things that we're going to be talking about, there was some news that broke around Forza Horizon 4 being delisted. And that caused Chase and I to just kind of have this moment where we're like, let's talk about like preservation. Let's talk about delistings. And so if you stick with us to the back half of this episode, we're going to be talking a little bit about what's going on with Forza Horizon 4, but more importantly, what's been going on with digital storefronts and just licensing and streaming and all that stuff. So a really fun show. Again, episode 381. It is the 26th of June, and we're going to get into it. So Chase, with that, what's happening with Paper Mario?
Paper Mario, still good.
Love it.
Paper Mario and Thousand Year Door. So, I don't know if I said this on the podcast last time. I really like this game. I definitely did say that, but I don't know if I particularly like it more than the original Paper Mario. Like what I remember people saying is like, oh, this one's so much better. It's leaps and bounds better. And I'm like, they're both good. Paper Mario, one of my favorite games of all time. So like this one is definitely right up there with it. I just don't think I see like a leap in quality like people were saying. Again, not to say it's a bad game. I think it's an amazing game. I'm pissed at myself for not having played it when it first came out on the GameCube. But I just collected my 6th Crystal Star.
Oh damn! So
right before we started recording.
I'm still at 3.
Okay.
I'm still going into the 4th location. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. So you're finished with the fighting tournament. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep. Okay. I think that we talked about that before, but I think that is still kind of the weakest part of the game. And it's not that it's bad exactly. It's just that it's slow. Pace wise, there's a lot to do there. But I think once you get out of there, there are some interesting towns. There's a couple of ways that they switch up the formula a little bit. I guess I'll give you a light spoiler here. In getting the 4th Crystal Star, it's very easy. And then you realize, there's more to it. So they do pull like a little bait and switch, which I think is fun. I think that's a nice way of changing up the pace. And I think they've done a lot of cool things with that as you go on. I also think there's just a lot of party members. There's even like a hidden one that I accidentally ran into, and I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, hell yeah, welcome to the team."
I was going to ask if there's basically one per star, right?
Kinda, yeah. But there is one that's in town. Like there's like a side quest thing that you can totally just skip if you wanted to. But one of those side quests leads you to another hidden character.
Can you tell me who your favorite character is?
Yeah, I really like a lot of them, and it feels like every new one's like, oh, this one's actually pretty cool. I think the little Yoshi that you get to name is pretty good. I said last week that I named him Yosh or Yash, but I'm pissed at myself for not naming him Yoshua. I think that's what or Yoshua. I think that's what I really wanted.
That'd be good.
Too late now. He's still fine. He does so much damage though, and I also like that he calls you Gonzalez because of a story thing, and he just keeps calling you that because he was born calling you that. Why is he going to change now?
That's like one of the most Paper Mario things. He reminds me energy wise of Bombombi a lot.
Sure.
I like that quite a bit.
Yeah, I think he's really good. And then I guess maybe it's a spoiler. I don't think it's a spoiler because it's on the box. But the three witches, the three ghost witches, one of them becomes a party member. Her name's Vivian, or their name is Vivian. I think there's some like fan stuff about transness, or there's like a hint. There's a line that kind of hints at it a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know if that's like headcanon at this point, but I think it's enough of a folklore that we honor it.
Yeah, like there's a line that's like, they treated me like a brother, and then I realized I was their sister, or something like that, which I guess can be taken a number of different ways, but definitely you have a lot of people trying to plant that flag, which I think is perfectly fine. She's a great character though. She can hit anybody. So you have like some characters who can only hit things on the ground, or some things that can only jump, so they can't hit the spiky guys. And she's like, yeah, I don't care, I can really hit anybody anywhere. I'm like, okay, yeah, you're pretty fucking rad. I like you.
That's awesome.
So yeah, a lot of fun characters.
What's your hour count?
That's tough to say. I'd say probably maybe like around 20-ish, maybe.
I thought I read somewhere that it's like a 30 to 35 hour game.
I could see that.
So
I will say one of the things I do like better in this one is the Princess Peach stuff. In the original Paper Mario, you'd go to Peach and you'd be playing a lot of those like there's long segments when you're playing as Peach, and she plays very differently. It's a lot of stealth sequence stuff. I think it's really interesting and really fun. Again, as like a change of pace in the original Paper Mario, but sometimes those levels run real long. And I'm like, I'm kind of here to do the RPG stuff, and she doesn't have any RPG elements to it. And it's like, can we just wrap this one up? And all the Peach stuff in this one is pretty short. Impactful still. I still think it's fun. You still get to do some stealth stuff. There's some funny lines. Game is incredibly well written. But the Peach stuff moves at a higher pace, which I really appreciate, to get back to the action of playing with Mario.
Agreed. I think that those have been a nice little, like, okay, take a breath. You just got through a big segment, probably a lot of fighting. Now you're going to get a little story beat and kind of have this. I think that's been really well done. Agreed.
So yeah, but that's basically what I've been playing. I haven't been too gamer moded these days. I'm playing a lot of Magic cards, and I'm watching some movies. We can talk about My Dinner with Andre, which I watched last night. Do you want to talk about My Dinner with Andre?
I've heard a lot about it.
It's a very different kind of movie. I had a good time, but it's a weird one.
Well, let me check in really quick on Horizon. We'll get into some of the new stuff I've been playing.
Sure.
Excuse me, I got something in my throat.
Yeah, you dying over there.
I'm dying. Horizon, I beat another boss. So now I have, it pairs you up to people who are at your gear level. I'm currently level 70. And it lets you see ahead by like 6 levels. So I've taken out 174. I'm on the second 74, but I just fought a harpy, and that was really fucking wild.
Okay.
Big old fucking harpy, and unlocked the ability now to craft. You can put gems into your abilities, your magic spells, and the gems are like different boosts. There's different variants of those gems you can get, and there's different levels. And now I can craft the biggest one. So it kind of min-maxing.
Are these just
abilities.
like stat boosts, or do they change?
It's like
fundamentally what the things do.
Well, some of it's kind of fundamental. Most of it's stat boost. It's like, okay, you're going to do 20% more damage with this attack, but then it's another one where like you could trick. I have one where I throw this skull, and if I hit them with this skull, it starts to orbit around them, and then when they die, if it's still orbiting, it's a necromancer and it pulls up a skeleton. It turns them into a fighter.
Okay.
And so one of the gems lets you throw another one of those, because you can throw 2, so now I can throw 3 before my cooldown, and that's like a pretty handy thing with it. So I'm able to craft those. Still doing a lot of the Brotherhood stuff, trying to get more resources and build better gear so I don't have to go out and grind stuff. It's not been terrible. I don't mind doing it. And I'm still looking for better blood types to bring back to the castle. But I think I have, I don't know, 8 more before the big boss. And then I'll start doing some in-game stuff. But that is absolutely going to be one of my favorite games this year. I'm having so much fun with it. And still kicking around in Diablo 4 as well, and I've hit Paragon level with my seasonal sorcerer. And
Paragon level is what exactly?
50. So I'm level 53 now, and there's also I don't know if Destiny did this, but like, what was the thing that you could go in and track like seasonal progression in Destiny? What was that called? You would unlock like new titles and shit. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So they have something similar in Diablo that gets you, when you unlock those, you get extra leveling points for your core abilities and not your Paragon points. So I think you can actually go up to level 60 and fill the skill tree there. So I'm kind of working on that stuff, but still having a great time with both of those. Last week, as you know, I was out traveling, so I was playing some stuff on the go. And before I get into those, I checked out the DLC for Alan Wake 2.
Okay.
I don't know if you know anything about this, but they announced it at the Game Fest.
It's like 3 characters, 3 individual stories.
3 individual stories in Night Springs, which is their Twilight Zone. So you're in a TV show called Night Springs. There's 3 characters that you can play. The first one is Jesse Faden from Control. You also get to play, I can't remember her name, but she's obsessed with Scott. She works at the diner. She's a waitress. Yes. And then I think his name's Sean Ashmore, right? That's the actor that's in he was in the Quantum Break.
Oh, Quantum Break. Yeah.
He's a sheriff in this game, but I believe it's the same character from, like, there's a weird shit happening, but you get to play as him.
Okay.
So I started playing as Jesse, and holy shit, it's pretty fucking wild, man. These are like hour-long segments, so this whole DLC is going to get you 3 hours of content. You're looking for your brother, which was kind of the whole thing in the game. I don't know where this takes place. It certainly seems like this would be taking place before the events of Control, but I might be wrong with that. I'm having a hard time kind of placing where it is. But it's weird playing as her without all the abilities that you have in Control, because she functions just like Alan Wake in this. So she has the flashlight, the handgun, and you're being guided in Coffee World, which is from the actual game, by your brother's voice. And so it's really cool how Remedy is just building and cooking up this awesome shared universe. I think they're onto something really neat there. And
so does it all tie into the stuff from Alan Wake 2, or does it feel like separate stories that are tangentially part of the universe?
It's so weird because you're engaging with Sean. I think it's Sean Ashmore. I'm probably butchering that, but the sheriff, he's there and he's talking about the things happening with people being like basically caught, like they're being turned into coffee monsters, is what he says. And that's very much in the Alan Wake stuff, but all the shimmering and like the voice in your head and being guided by your brother is in this game. And so it feels like not Control or not Alan Wake, but this is just Remedy at this point. Like it feels like this is them saying, hey, you're just in our world now, and all these characters can exist. We don't have to make sense of it because it's Night Spring, so it can be a fucking movie or a TV show.
They've kind of got a house style at this point.
Yep, that's exactly what it is. It's just their house style. It's really fucking good. If you bought the deluxe version of the game, it's already there with it, so you don't have to pay for it. But if you're looking to upgrade, I think it's $20 for the deluxe upgrade, and that gets you this. And then they have other DLC. This is more like a little vignette thing, but there's an actual story beat coming that's going to be like called The Cabin, where it's tried and true. So
okay,
it's cool. Like it's very neat.
Any large musical pieces?
Not yet, but I've heard that Ati is around, and so he brings the music in all the games. He brought the music in the hallway sequence and Control. He had a karaoke solo, and then all the other stuff that came with it. So I don't know, man. Like I am at this point now, I will play anything they put out because their house style is just fucking doing it for me. I like these guys a whole lot.
That's great. Well,
a game that you got to check out that we didn't expect to check out this week is Whisker Squadron Survivor.
Yeah.
We ended up streaming this on Monday night. We attempted to stream another game. But Metal Slug Attack Reloaded was not it for us. But Whisker Squadron Survivor is, and at least for me, this is. Well, I don't know. Like, do you think it is?
It's weird. We talked a lot about it on Monday, and I would. I generally I think, hey, we're just streaming a game here. It's kind of disposable content. We're just having fun. But I think we got to some really interesting discussions near the middle and end point of that podcast where we were talking, or that stream, and that we were talking about the ways devs, especially indie devs, kind of start out with an idea, and sometimes the idea changes as you go on, and that's fine. They want to pursue what they want to pursue, but sometimes it's different from what the people were interested in when it first got announced. And that's kind of how I feel about Whisker Squadron. Like that game got announced as like, hey, we're making a new Star Fox because Nintendo's never going to do it for you, and that's what I want that so bad.
I know, man.
And that's kind of what this is. At least the bones of it are what it is. But they have turned this into a roguelike game, which makes a lot of sense. Those are popular. They're I wouldn't say easier to make, but it is, at least from like an asset perspective, it's stuff you can you can reuse a lot of stuff. So I get it, and maybe it's just more interesting to them. Sure. But it's a little less what I'm looking for, even though I still think the pieces are all there. I think the ship design looks cool. I think the character designs feel like a Saturday morning Star Fox ripoff thing that rip off in the best way possible. And I think they have some cool ideas when it comes to the weapons that you get and the enemies that you fight and the ways that you play the game.
They do have, I'm just seeing this now. So this is made by Flipfly. If you want to buy this game, it'll set you back $15, by the way. It is on PC only at this time, but they have
it's still in early access.
It is in early access. They have another game called Race the Sun.
I played Race the Sun.
So they got a type for shooters, it looks like, but
Race the Sun is a little. Is that a shooter, or is that more of just like flying through a 3D space? Or
it's a racer, I think, more than it is.
Yeah, I think it is more like a Star Fox, except you're not shooting and you're just kind of dodging. But it's really cool. Like you're always racing towards the horizon, and it's really neat.
But this is if you played Vampire Survivor, you're collecting shards when you kill enemies, and then you're presented with 3 choices when you level up. There's persistent currency that you can go and unlock more things for your ship. There's other ships you can get. They just added in a 1.0. I'm sorry, not a 1.0. They're in early access, but they just added in a story beat to it. There's no voiceover for it. I think the game's cool. If you are trying to scratch an itch, they are still working on an actual Star Fox clone, but this is a pretty close one with some of the roguelike trappings.
They've even announced a second one. Like there's a 2 in development, which is weird if this one is still in early access. So like, shouldn't you finish one before you get to me? Okay, hey, whatever, go for it.
But the game I've probably spent the most time with since I was on the run is a game called Blood, well, I don't know if it's like hashtag blood. Chase, do you know who Gendy Tart?
Yes.
Okay.
Gendy Tartakovsky. Yeah.
Yes, you're aware of who that is.
Yes. Dexter's Lab, Powerpuff Girls, the original Clone Wars show, Primal. Yeah.
Are you aware of The Legend of Zelda?
Heard of it.
What if you brought those things together and threw some vampires into it?
Well, without the vampires, it sounds great. I'll take a vampire.
Well, I guess I should say, instead of what if you took like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you took Dexter.
You're losing me. Okay, now you're getting me. Wait, which Dexter?
Laboratory.
Okay, getting me back.
So Blood was put out on June 18th by Exit 73 Studios.
Sorry.
No, it's all good.
I didn't realize that video was going to autoplay and that my sound was on. I'm looking at the Blood trailer.
So this game looks incredible. It has such a good style to it. The writing is pleasant and quirky and fun. It's all hand-drawn animation also in this game. And it is a top-down it's not a roguelike. It's not a Metroidvania. It is just an action adventure game where you are upgrading your lacrosse. What do you call that?
Yeah, that looks like some kind of lacrosse cane.
Yeah,
racket or not racket, but yeah.
So you don't know that you have some sort of like family lineage of vampire hunting, and in that. You end up meeting Christopherson, who is the janitor at your high school. Also, Chris Christopherson played, I can't remember his name, in the Wesley Snipes Blade movie, who was basically his trainer and mentor.
Oh, okay.
So I think there's a little callback there to it. But you are unlocking spells that you can access. There are a lot of upgrades and things that you can put into your weapon here that you use. But you're going through this town and you're finding out kind of like what's happening with the weird shit in the town, and the whole game is organized by Twitter. So you go and check your social feeds, and that's how you get your quest. And as you click in on a post, you get to see the comments happening on it, and that's where you're hearing more about what to do. This has one of the best in-game camera modes.
I just saw a clip of that. It looks incredible.
It's so good because you can change all of her faces and animations, the just talking heads that happen. The puzzles have been really clever. There was one where they had all the planets in this planetarium at the school, and some of them were missing, and you had to like organize them to find a key. It's
Bobby, important question. When you say all the planets,
Uranus and Pluto were there.
Okay, good. Pluto's the important one.
Yep. The game, I'm going to call out, I think that it is very combat heavy, and I don't know how great the combat feels. And that could just be I haven't unlocked things, but the game desperately needs iframes because it is based off of like 1, 2, 3 combo hits. And once you start it, you can't stop it. But you are, and the problem also is that you have a dodge ability. And when you do this dodge, you can attack right after it and do an uppercut. And some enemies require that type of hit to damage them. But if you're rolling, you're susceptible. And so it can be a little problematic. I think that's been the downside that I've read about from other people is just like, hey, I love everything about this game, but the combat feels a little rough. And that's an unfortunate thing because there's a lot of it. But you can throw pencils like throwing knives. I just got an umbrella attachment to my lacrosse cane that lets me block and shield with it. And I just added a shovel to it. There's one that looks almost like a hook shot that gets added into it. Looks really cool. I don't know, man. Like this game, it's not cheap by any stretch. It's $25. Yeah. But I think it's visually what Cuphead did for like Steamboat Willy type shit.
Yeah.
This is basically like late 90s, early 2000s Adult Swim, Cartoon Network type shit.
Yeah, no, I love this art style. It looks like it's available most places.
It's definitely on the Switch.
It is on the Switch. Yeah, man, I might have to grab this and check it out. I was just a huge I grew up with Nickelodeon. We didn't have Cartoon Network, and so it was like anytime we'd go to a hotel or something, it's like, oh, I get to watch the other cartoons, and it's like, what the fuck is Cow and Chicken? Like, this is amazing. And Dexter's Lab and Powerpuff Girls were also in that same kind of like, holy shit, like these look incredible. Like, fuck the Rugrats, I don't give a fuck about them anymore. Like, this is what I want. And then at some point, our cable provider at home were like, hey, they wanted too much money, we're dropping Nickelodeon, but hey, we gained Cartoon Network, and so, you know, I lost my Cat Dogs and my SpongeBob's, but I gained my Dexter's Labs and Powerpuff Girls and that stuff. And this just brings me back to a better time for sure.
I absolutely think it's worth your time. I've had a lot of fun with it. It's really, really cool. I know we have not been as consistent as we once were with Quick Looks. This might be something to dust off to kind of give you a little taste of something. So
I would like to see more for sure.
It's really cool. So it's the funny thing too is I don't want to spoil it, but I didn't know, like, okay, I think it's Blood when I saw the title for it, BLUD, but they because it's hashtag Blood, the game is, that ties into the Twitter thing, but there was a typo that he made with Blood. Okay. And that's like how the title of the game comes to be.
That's great. I love that.
So really quirky, really dumb shit like that. But the school, all the set pieces, it's very, very good. The shop in the game is a kid named Mitch who lets you look into his locker, and that's where he keeps stuff that you can buy.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, it's neat, man. It's a cool game. So that is Blood. We talked a lot about Paper Mario. We went into Whisker Squadron Survivor. We talked about Alan Wake 2 Night Springs DLC, and then we just wrapped up our conversation on Blood.
And we talked about My Dinner with Andre. Can't forget that.
My Dinner with Andre. Why don't we get over into the segment here where we're going to talk a little bit about the grim vandalism of gaming history could be far more easily prevented if we figured out how to license games better, Chase. We came across a story that we heard about the delisting of Forza Horizon. I was reading through John Walker's post over on Kotaku talking about it. But we decided that we were going to break into this story a little bit more. So I don't know if you want to kind of set it up more than that. But
sure. I can at least talk about like what this is about. So, Turn 10, are they still this is still the Forza dev, right? They
Wasn't
came out
Playground?
and said Playground. You're right. Sorry. I don't know what I'm thinking. Playground said, hey, you know, due to they put out a very short message, but basically they said due to some licensing, or I don't even think they said due to licensing. They just said, hey, because of contracts expiring or whatever, we're taking down all of the DLC for Forza Horizon 4. I believe that was effective immediately, right?
Yes. Well, no, it's close. Are you talking about Forza?
Okay, it's
Horizon 4, right?
The DLC for it. I think that was going away soon.
That's going away, and then there's an in-game event, like a playlist that's going away.
Yes, the final season of the game, because it does have like an ongoing thing that it does these playlist stuff, or this kind of like Destiny. Hey, you can do these public event things. That is ending with season 77, which that's a lot of seasons. And then the game itself is getting delisted from Game Pass and other digital storefronts in December, like December 14th, 18th, something like that. 15th.
Yes. Right off the top, I'll also say it's currently 80% off on Steam. So you can buy it right now and get all that shit, but it will be
and they're also doing some other kind of convoluted stuff where it's like, hey, if you bought the DLC and you've been playing the Game Pass version, but you have Game Pass that wasn't discounted when you bought Game Pass, then we'll just give you a token for the game for free. So like they're trying to do a couple of things to weed out the edge cases and make sure that all these people have this game before it comes out or before it goes away. So there's some kind of good on you. You're trying to do some stuff, but at the same time, the bigger problem is that why is this going away at all? And why do we have to keep dealing with this with other games? Now, the reason is money, obviously. And when you're a game like Forza Horizon, you have a lot of licenses. You have all the cars, 750 fucking cars, and all of them have licensing agreements attached to them. And then you think about the DLC for Forza Horizon. I can't remember which ones they did for 4.
They did Lego. They did Lego, and then that's the one where they took you to a place with snow, if I'm not mistaken. Like
there shouldn't. Yeah, I don't think there's any license.
Wasn't there Hot Wheels there too?
I can't remember if Hot Wheels was in 4 or if it was in 3 and 5.
I know it's in 5, but I think it was 4 and 5. Actually, I'll look it up.
Okay, but yeah, the point is like a number of licenses that were really cool. The Hot Wheels stuff especially was incredibly cool, and but at the same time, also in music, and they licensed a ton of music. Like I think it's in 4 or 5. There's a Dua Lipa track that I really like.
Oh yeah.
Lots of great music in those games, but all of that is also licensed. So when you have all of these things that are licensed, oftentimes those licenses are on a limited time, and those licenses might go for a couple of years, a decade, and then they can go into perpetuity. You can buy a license in perpetuity, but when you buy a license in perpetuity, the price goes way up because they know they're never going to get another dime out of that. So
really quick, sorry, don't want to cut you off here, but they added in, there was 3 passes for VIP membership, car pass, and treasure map. There's a bunch of car packs. They did have a Hot Wheels Legends car pack, but the expansions was something called Fortune Island, and then they had the Lego Speed Champions. Okay. So they had Hot Wheels in it, but not as far as like the track like you got in 5 or anything.
Like 5, 5 put out the other track, like like a new island that was all like the orange raceways and things like that. So there, it has all these licenses, and when you don't buy things in perpetuity because they're too expensive often, or because you're a publisher who's just trying to save a couple bucks, and you're thinking, well, who's going to play Forza Horizon 5 or Forza Horizon 4 when we have Forza Horizon 5 coming out in a handful of years? We can let that license run out, so then they're playing the new game. And a lot of people are. A lot of people have moved on to Forza Horizon 5 or moved off of Forza Horizon 5 and waiting for a 6th. Yeah, absolutely. It's a fantastic game. But at the same time, Forza Horizon 4 was a pretty good game, and it included a different area. It had the English countryside, whereas 5 is all about Mexico and things like that. So if you wanted to play more in that environment, which has an appeal for you, it's not like playing Forza Motorsport 5 versus Forza Motorsport 6. Like, oh, I'll just play on the Nürburgring again. Like they all have a lot of the same tracks. Forza Horizon has these completely different areas that you can drive around in. So there's reasons why people would want to stick with 4. And it has a pretty good community that's still playing that game. Now, also good stuff. They're keeping the game online. Like, yes, they're going to have their last season, but you can still play the game. If you have bought the game, you can still download the game even after it gets delisted. You will still be able to play the DLC even when it gets delisted, or if it is already delisted, you can still play all that stuff. So they're not shutting the servers down, which is a problem we've seen from other games, but it is something that eventually you're just not going to be able to buy again
after December 15th,
right? Outside of a disc. And even when you buy a disc, that has its own problems of there's getting updates and things like that. At some point that's going to break too, and then you're just going to have discs that don't do anything.
Unless if you are on the Xbox console buying a disc for this game, you have currently you can buy an Xbox One and keep that around, but they're putting out a digital Series X now. They have the S. So you could buy one of the older, less storage X's that are out. But I think the signs are telling us from both Sony and Microsoft, the next iteration, PlayStation 6, whatever they call the next Xbox, probably going to be digital only. And I think those discs that you have are going to be harder and harder on that platform as it grows. So it creates a problem. And who knows, like maybe at some point they'll put a thing that says you just can't read these games anymore. I don't fucking know.
Well, and we've struggled with discs currently anyway of, hey, you buy it used to be back in the day, you buy a cartridge, it's got the game on it, you play the game. And when you start with the advent of discs and downloadable patches and things like that, now there is a benefit to studios of going, well, we don't have to completely finish the game. We can still polish some stuff up with a day one patch. We can get things sent off and it's, playable, but we'll fix it all in post.
Not always.
Not always. But the idea is like, hey, we'll try to fix this in post. And so oftentimes even the discs you get don't feel like you're getting a complete game out of it. And that's just been part of the push and pull of how these things go. I remember there was a time where I didn't have the internet at my house, so I really did need to have a game be able to work on my console without having to download a patch for it, or you just live with the broken parts, or you'd be like Capcom or something, you have to put out a whole new NES cartridge at some point where you change something, and those other ones, well, I guess you're gonna have to look at serial numbers or whatever to say which one's the fucked ones and which one's the fixed ones.
Not only did we talk about Alan Wake 2 DLC earlier, but we'll talk about it twice in this segment. One, I think just today, physical copies started. I saw an image of them at least. They finally brought Alan Wake 2 to physical, which they had not had. And it was tied only to the Epic Game Store because Epic funded it. So there was people who were struggling with Steam and they didn't want to mix that. But clearly there's a need here. Like there's people who couldn't play that game. They're like, yeah, I'd love to play it. Can't though, And now they'll have this. And then we'll talk a little bit about Alan Wake, the original one, and their licensing debacle as well here in a bit. But it's just, there's still a need for it for folks.
Yeah. I mean, something I found interesting in the article, you even highlighted the quote here, which I think is just the really good quote here, is that this is kind of a uniquely video game problem. And the quote is, there's no movie you now can't watch because the lead character drove an Audi. Indeed, Audi likely paid an enormous wad of cash to have their car appear in the film. There's no book that's unpublishable because the protagonist drank a Coke. We can't let games keep vanishing from existence for the sake of these short-term deals. And he's right. He's right for sure. But I also think about Netflix and, yes, the film is, it's not like you're going to stop showing the Italian Job because your licensing agreement with Mini Cooper ran out. That's not how that works. But Netflix licenses a movie for a certain amount of time on their streaming service. And then eventually that deal ends and that movie gets taken down or renewed at some point, or it goes to Hulu or whatever. We've seen that happen with something like Seinfeld, where it was on one service and then it ended and it went to a different service. Arrested Development's another example. Yeah. So I would say that movies and TV also deal with this, but in a slightly different way. But yes, the big problem is that those are generally the only ways that you can get video games is from these digital storefronts. And you can generally always go out and buy a DVD of some of these other things, which do not need patches.
Well, I think it also kind of starts to bring up the question of what does it mean to own something anymore?
Sure.
And so when you were talking a little bit about a part that we're going to get into around games that we wish we could play again, I've kind of been an anomaly for a while in my life. I'm very tech heavy, but I made the decision when it became easy to do so. I would say it's been 11 years ago at this point, that I was going to move to the cloud with my digital life. So my photos live in the cloud, my documents live in the cloud. When it came to getting a new iPhone, I never restore from a backup. I just go and download the apps again that I need. I have everything else I want in the cloud. And I've been in this mindset where I love the past and I love having these things, and there's certain things I do want to buy and own, but I'm always been pretty comfortable. And if you listen to our show, you know I play a lot of new stuff. Like, I'm always looking for new things to do. So I think it's hard for me to also think about this in a way where I feel like I can carry a lot of water, because while I like to have a library of things, and I've been doing that now, I've basically, since I went from 360 to PlayStation 4 back to Xbox and not a PC, and I've bought those. Oh, and I have the Switch in there across all those things. I have these libraries that have been splintered, and I just want to have all my shit in one spot, and that's becoming even harder to do. And one of the things that, like, I have been talking very openly about my love of Game Pass, and I look at it like the same way I look at music in some cases. Like, I have Apple Music, Spotify, whatever, and I listen to things. If I really like it, I'm going to buy the album on vinyl, and I'm going to try and see them if they tour. And I've had it happen where it's like, hey, I beat this game on Game Pass, but I loved it so much, I want to own it. I'm going to buy the game and just have it on Steam now. So if it gets delisted, which happens a lot on Game Pass, I now have it over here. And I went and bought Forza Horizon 4 when I saw that it was on sale, and I bought for $20, I got everything, and that's on Steam now. So I have it there. But this is a hard thing for me, because I don't know at any given moment, do I really own these things? Like, could they disappear? Like, totally. That's the hard part. Like, there could be a publishing deal that goes sideways. There could be a licensing issue that goes sideways. And then you as the consumer are left in a weird spot of, well, do I pirate this thing? Mm-hmm. And like, that's a whole other sticky situation.
Sure. I mean, we've even seen, like, owning a game is sometimes not even enough. No. Like buying the game, like having the game on Steam. There was some game. What was it called? Helldivers 2. Where it's like, I bought the game and you're telling me I can't even play the game anymore? What the fuck? Like, so you're not delisting it. You're just telling me to go fuck myself.
I'm glad you did that, because I put that on my list early, like what we're gonna get to, and I'm like, technically you can buy it, but not everywhere.
Right.
And you what's even worse is, to your point, you had it once. You tasted it. Right. You loved it. And now you don't get it.
And that is the thing that's always felt like like keeping something sacred is, for Steam at least, is like, if you bought it, you got it. So even if we delist it, you still got it. Don't worry about it. Like that is your one way to combat this stuff. We saw I forgot who the asshole was who the completionist, is that his name, who like downloaded everything from the 3DS eShop before the 3DS before the eShop died. And so yes, the idea is like, okay, you got it. Like, we have it all, we have all the files, so we're fine, right? And then they can still say, well, we decided no, we're gonna take that away from you, and that fucking sucks. So going back to something you had said about like kind of going all digital and all cloud at one point, I was somewhat in the same boat, where there was a very long time where I was incredibly proud of my physical collection of stuff. Like, I liked displaying my NES games, I liked displaying all my Xbox 360 boxes, so I could look at them and go like, wow, look at what I've curated for myself. And there definitely got to a time, and I'll tell you, it certainly helped when I moved to be like, this is a lot of bullshit. I don't want any of this garbage anymore. And so there's a definite appeal to having something like, for me, an analog pocket that I have jailbroken in a way to be able to just have all the ROMs on a thing. It's like, hey, it's all here. It's all here. It's in my pocket. I don't need to switch out stuff. I don't need to have a big box of all these things. I have one thing, and it holds all the games, and that's great. That's like saving a lot of time, saving a lot of space. Perfect. But that is perfect because of piracy in a way, or emulation as like a more legally dubious part of it. Is there are ways to get these things, but they're not always the most legal ways. And when do you kind of decide the law is actively harming you from the things that you like?
Well, I think what's happened here. Sorry, I'll let you finish your thought. I didn't mean to cut in there. Go, do your thing.
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to get like fuck the corpos or whatever here.
No, yeah.
I mean, a little bit I do, but like when you talk about having Game Pass, or when you got really excited about Google's cloud gaming thing when that first came out, or even something like Netflix, like the idea of like, hey, I gave away my physical collection because now I can just have it all in the cloud, or I have it all available to me digitally. And my thought was like, you do, at least for now, and then maybe some of these things will go away, maybe individually or maybe all at once in the case of Google. And even then, it's not like when I said, hey, here's my collection that I've curated. Now you say, well, here's a collection that Xbox curated for me. Like, these are all the games that Microsoft says it's okay for me to play. And once they decide, well, that game's going away for whatever reason, mostly a money reason, a licensing deal ran out reason, they go, well, you don't get to play that game anymore. And to me, I think, fuck you. What the fuck? So, these are the games I want, and I always want to be able to have access to them. And it's the same for animes and movies and TV shows and books and all these things. Like, I want to make sure I have these things because there are ways when you talk about end user license agreements and things like that and digital storefronts that they can take things away from you. And that is so anathema to the way I think and work. So it does get me in a mode of like, well, I can just pirate some stuff because then I know I have it in the format I want it. I know it can play on these specific things. It all works in my thing, instead of, oh, I got a copy of Aeon Flux that only works on this one service, and it's the only movie I have on that one service, so it's the only way for me to watch it. And now I go over to Netflix and I can watch these 4 things, and now I can go to this thing and play this game. And I just think that kind of sucks. And it's such a small bit of rebellion, but it's like the way I can rebel of like, hey, nobody gives a shit about Radio Free Roscoe, a television show I watched on Noggin back in my teens that meant a lot to me, but it didn't really mean a lot to anybody else. It got like one DVD that was like a best of that threw like 5 episodes together, but not in order, not all of the episodes. And like that thing is basically lost to time. But I was able to find a long time ago, somebody had all the episodes that you could download and pirate, and I have them all now. And I could go back and I could watch this show that was incredibly important to me, that is not on Hulu, that is not on Netflix, that is not available anywhere, and has a DVD that does not have the complete series, that is also extremely hard to find anyway. And so that is where I really get into that preservation mindset.
Well, I think that's the whole thing, right? Preservation versus piracy. And, back in the early 2000s, late 90s, high-speed internet was becoming more affordable in more locations, and you had the ability to download more things. It was something that, like, I'll never forget, man. Like, when Napster came around, I was just like, I can go and spend, and I was young. I was like in grade school going to high school. I was like, cool, I can go buy a spindle of blanks, and then I can start to burn these, and I can just have this album whenever I want it. The other thing that came from that was this campaign, maybe you heard of it. Hey, we're going to put 1,000 songs in your pocket.
Sure.
The iPod
Who said that?
Who said that? Steve Jobs famously came out and said, we're going to put 1,000 songs in your pocket. And by the way, we made a digital storefront. And you can buy these albums and just put them right here and swap them out whenever you want to. It can be midnight and you can be curating a playlist. And boom, you're ready to go. This will interface into these things. And that was not only a revolution, it was a convenience. And I think that's the key thing here, is that even something like the Switch, where when I first got it, I bought the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild Collector's Edition, all the goodies that came with it. But then it got to this point where it's like, well, hey, Super Mario Odyssey's coming out. I'm like, I don't really want to have to carry this game with me anymore. And this thing's already going to be portable. It would just be easier and more convenient if I had everything on this digitally already. And so what they've done is they've came in, these corporate geniuses, and they've made you think, we're going to make your life better. You love video games. You can put 1,000 video games in your pocket now, you dumb fuck. And we're going to let you download them whenever you want to. And
unless it's Call of Duty, and then you can download half the game.
Half the game. You can get
you don't have enough
in your pocket.
You don't have enough hard drive space.
Hey, is that a cod in your pocket? Or are you happy to see me? But it's one of those situations where they teased you and they made you cozy, thinking that we're going to make you, here's your warm blanket, curl up, put all your games in your library, curate what you want. You can buy them how you need to. And you're going to have these situations where then you start to make it like, hey, indie developers can get into your pocket also now. And you can get these things which make it so much easier. It became a thing for me of convenience, and I never thought about the consequence. We talk all the time about preservation versus piracy. We never really talk about convenience versus the consequence of that.
Well, one of the things about piracy is the convenience.
Totally.
Why, like, if the argument that I think a lot of pirates, myself included, I guess, in that equation, is if you offered it to me in a way that has as much convenience as me pirating it, I would pay money for it. You're not giving me the thing I want. And digital storefronts are a half measure to that. Yes, we're giving you the convenience of having it all in one place. We're giving you the convenience of having it in a digital format that's not taking up room on your shelf. But what we're not giving you is in perpetuity. We're not giving you the ownership of it. We're not letting you do the things that you want to do with it because it's still on our closed systems. It's still on our closed stuff. And I understand why you want to do that for a business. It makes sense for a business, but it also is not the way I want to have those things, and often will still like clash with that, and that's a problem. Now, I do want to say one thing. So I've mentioned pro piracy a couple times here, and I do want to say, even when that is the case, like you said, it's finding ways of supporting the people who make this stuff, because that's incredibly important. If you don't support what they do, they're not going to get to make more stuff, and then you've played yourself. So it's buying merch. It's, for a band, it's going to the concert. It's buying a physical version of this thing, even if you know that you downloaded the thing the way that you really wanted it another way. There are certainly ways to do both, even if one is morally gray and the other one is conveniently gray. And so it definitely is like a balance, because they're not giving you the things the way you want them, and sometimes they're not giving you these things at all. Do we want to transition to the part where we talk about games that we just can't get now?
Yeah, I'll just call out really quick movements and initiatives that you can look into. Like, there are DRM free initiatives that are out there. Like GOG does a lot of that. Internet Archive is doing some great work on just helping you look at those classic games. And you're
starting to being sued by a bunch of dumbasses about digital libraries. Yes, they're doing cool stuff. I remember I interviewed, this is for all Gamers on the Go a handful of years ago. I interviewed someone from the Internet Archive about a bunch of Tiger Electronics games that they had digitized and put onto the Internet Archive that you can just play from a browser. And it was really interesting. Like, hey, these games are mostly crap, but like it's cool that there is a preservation attempt to this, and there's a place that you can experience them in kind of a museum format to just continue to understand their context, and that I think was really great. They do some great work when they're not trying to defend themselves from being sued by everybody.
Yes, I think that while we get into the next part, this conversation is so good that there's a B-side to it where I think that we talk a little bit more about, like, it just happened with Beyond Good and Evil was delisted and nobody knew why. Well, they just put out a 20th anniversary edition that had a few more bells and whistles into it that is more expensive than what the other one was, I'm pretty sure, that you can buy if you wanted to have that. But now the version of that game is gone. And I think back to when you and I tried to do our Portal stream and all the shit we had to go through to find a version of fucking Portal that would work. Because they changed chips on computers and Intel and Power PC and all that dumb fucking stuff. Anyway,
Grand Theft Auto too. Like, remember they took
got rid of
down
all those.
Grand Theft Auto to put out the definitive editions that all looked like shit and nobody liked, but the other ones were gone and you could never get them again.
So the remasters that we see that we buy because we were fearful of losing access to those games, that we do the dumb shit like remastering The Last of Us 4 times. So
or even today, like we're talking about Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door. That is a remake, an update to the original game, but it has some changes. And this is where you quibble a little bit. Like, did they really change enough to make a big difference? To some people, to most people, they're probably going to go, it's whatever, it's fine. It's, hey, I can play the game that I remember on the GameCube, and that's enough for me. And there are other people who go, hey, this secret doesn't work anymore, or hey, this exploit that I was able to do that meant so much to me that I thought was really, really cool back in the day, it's gone now. And so some of these things don't necessarily go one-to-one either, even when you do have generally a way to continue keeping a game alive.
Well, let's talk about some of those that you wish you could still.
Sure.
And we'll go from there.
Yeah.
I think you and I both put down Guitar Hero. I know that they're trying to bring that back right now in the flavor of Fortnite. It's not there. And you mentioned Helldivers too. I said, I know you can buy this game, but some locations no longer, and that sucks. So
yeah,
I feel like that should be on.
I didn't see that
here.
It was on your list. I'm sorry. I feel like I stole some of your thunder.
You validated me, because I was like, I don't know if I should put this here or not. And then, not that I keep playing it, but we streamed it a few times. That game, The Cycle, The Frontier, that was that extraction game, gone. And I never played it, but I had a lot of friends who were super into Friday the 13th, the game. And that licensing obviously not working out and gone. And then this has been delisted and listed and now delisted. Strong Bad's cool game for attractive people from the Homestar Runner fame. I did buy this. They kind of said, hey, we're going to make it cheap. You can buy it on Steam before we go. Enjoy. And that's one that I think again, nostalgia.
Yeah, absolutely. I also have Guitar Hero 2 on mine. Like, yes, Guitar Hero might live, but will Guitar Hero 2 live? Will that listing of tracks live again in the same fashion and form? Probably not. And
I will send you a clip. Alex talked about this over on Nextlander, because he bought everything for that. Like every week he bought the DLC, and now
that's for Rock Band though, right?
Rock Band. There's basically, you want to talk about piracy and weird perversions. There is people who have made this game that you basically can go in and program your own game, your own songs to.
Totally.
Anyway.
Yeah, and I think I ended up being more of a Rock Band fan than a Guitar Hero fan. In fact, I know I was more of a Rock Band fan than Guitar Hero. But Guitar Hero 2 was the one that kind of set me on the path, and that, like, I remember those songs. I remember playing them. I remember where I was when I was playing them, and similar things with Rock Band, but it just hit so much harder for Guitar Hero. Yeah. I think about a game like WWF No Mercy for the N64, which a classic example of, like, hey, they're not making that game again, and they're not making that game for a number of reasons. The studio who made it isn't doing that anymore. Like, the license went to another game company, game developer, game publisher. WWE doesn't want to make those games anymore, make those style of games anymore. It's called the WWE now. You can't put WWF No Mercy on a game anymore. Some of those wrestlers have died. Some of those wrestlers killed some fucking people and then killed themselves.
And some of them shit on people, literally.
Yeah, probably don't want to put Chris Benoit in a video game in 2024. I get it. But also, like, that game is incredibly important to the history of video games as well as the history of wrestling. You think about how even like the dumb video game wrestling stuff that they do at PAX, like they use. I don't think they use No Mercy. I think they use WrestleMania 2000. But the point stands. Like, those N64 Aki wrestling games, those aren't coming back. And the closest thing we get is AEW Fight Forever, which is like, we're going to try to make one of those games, and they kind of got there, but it's not the same. It's not the same as putting out the game that we want, that we remember, that we love. Same goes for NBA Street Volume 2. NBA Street Volume 2 was an incredibly important game to me, and I liked V3 that came after, and I liked Home Court a lot, which came after that on the 360. But you're not... Like, Kobe Bryant's in that game. Are you going to get Kobe Bryant's license again? I mean, current NBA games are able to do that now, but are you going to do that for a game that was on the original Xbox? Bill Walton was in that game. Bill Walton's dead now. Like some of these people, are you able to get these licenses? The music, the announcer that they got DJ Cucumber Slice, obviously.
Yeah, naturally.
Would they bring that game back? I don't know. They would probably make a new NBA Street before they brought back
you'll end up
Volume 2.
Whisker Squadron Survivor, not Star Fox.
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to get Agent 64,
somebody else,
not GoldenEye.
Totally. Somebody else will make another basketball game in the vein of that, but it won't be the game that I want. And I've gone back and played NBA Street Volume 2, a game that you cannot play, I believe, at least on your 360. I don't think it's backwards compatible with that. So you have to dig out an original Xbox. So. Yeah. Or a GameCube or a PlayStation 2 where that game originally came out on to play that game anymore. It's the only way you can do it. That's not on a digital storefront anywhere or on physical consoles that are not incredibly old at this point. I'll rush through a couple. Some dumb anime games. Like I remember how big I was into Dragon Ball Fusions on the 3DS when that came out. That's a game that probably won't show up anywhere else. And yes, they're still making Dragon Ball games. There's plenty of Dragon Ball games out there, but are they going to pick out this one to get remade at some point? Probably not. Naruto Path of the Ninja 2 was not an incredibly great DS game, but I loved it. It meant a lot to me back in the day. And that game is never going to get any sort of re-release. It's just not going to happen. We talked about this was before the show, but we talked about Marvel vs. Capcom a couple times where those games got put up and pulled down and put up and pulled down. And, there's currently no way to grab Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. We're about to be able to get that collection that has Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and X-Men vs. Street Fighter and things like that. But eventually that will also get ripped down because there's Marvel and Disney are only going to let that license go on so long. So
there's been so many delisted Marvel things too.
Absolutely. And then like a weird one for me, again, like a thing that mattered to me in childhood was the Alien versus Predator arcade game, which I remember the restaurant that I went to with my family and would just play that so many times and loved that game. And it never came to consoles. Like there was a Super Nintendo Alien versus Predator game, but it was not the same. And I've just waited and waited to see, like, is this game ever going to like show up in the same way that you'll get like a Turtles in Time to show up on something, and so far it hasn't, and that's a bummer to me. And I think that's the other important thing. And kind of when I was talking about I know we want to kind of wrap up a little bit, but when I was talking about Radio Free Roscoe, here's this dumb little thing that's only important to chase. There are games that get remade. Like we've seen them. There are some that have come over, like defied the odds. Like another game I really liked was Rock and Roll Racing on the Super Nintendo, and that game, as part of the Blizzard collection that came out a couple of years ago, did get re-released with its original chiptune hardcore music to it, or not hardcore, but rock and roll music to it, and that was great. You mentioned GoldenEye and GoldenEye 007. It took a long fucking time and a lot of people bitching back and forth what Nintendo owns, what Microsoft is part of, or what is Rare is part of Microsoft owns. How do we get GoldenEye 007 to come out again? Why does anybody care about GoldenEye 007, a movie that was good, but like it's not the James Bond movie we're talking about these days. We're not talking about any James Bond movie that's happening these days. And so Pierce Brosnan is hanging on by a thread at this point. Like it's like he hasn't been Bond for a long time. Why does anybody care about GoldenEye 007 coming back? And it's because that game was incredibly important to video games. It was incredibly important to popularizing first-person shooters on consoles, not on PCs, but it helped inspire a lot. Would you get a Halo if you didn't have a GoldenEye there to build off of? So we see it with certain games that are able to break through and go, okay, we found a way to get Marvel vs. Capcom 2 back on a console. We found a way to get GoldenEye 007. We found a way to get Rock and Roll Racing, and blah, 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 blah. But for games that only matter to a couple of people, those aren't going to get that same treatment. And it goes back to that same thing of, we'll get the things that are important. We'll get the things that somebody else says are important, but not necessarily the things that you think are important. Yep. And that's the real bummer to me. And it's why things like ROM preservation are so important to me.
Dude, absolutely.
Like, there would be no way to play some of these games if it wasn't for morally gray piracy, legally gray piracy stuff happening to get these emulation things, to get these ROM things going,
100%.
To make those things available to us. And
100%.
Yeah.
This is a conversation I think we need to keep going. I don't know if it'll be next week, but I think that we're going to have to pick this one back up and talk through some more things.
I bet there will be another story about a game being delisted sometime where we can go, you know what, let's pick this back up.
Yeah, this has been fun. Like, I like that we're doing, again, this focus on like a deeper conversation, because it means a lot to like understand our perspective, and we've been gaming for our entire lives, and that's been a few decades now at this point. So thank you for hearing it out with us. And if you have thoughts on like games that have been delisted, thecasualhour@gmail.com. You can comment on anything on Spotify if you're listening to our podcast there. But shoot us a link. Let us know what you think. Like, if you have a thought on this too, we'll have a poll on the Spotify side of things, so you can tune in there for it. But this is what we got. If you want to hang out with us, you can follow those links right there in the chat. We have had a fun week. We talked about Metal Slug Attack Reloaded, and ended up being Whisker Squadron. We did our What You've Been Playing episode tonight, and then I'm going to be playing Diablo 4 with or without some friends on Friday, so come back and see how hot hell is. Chase, what do you got going on, and where can the fine folks find you?
Yeah, I've got a YouTube channel, ChaseK Plays, where currently I'm playing through Advance Wars 2 in a series I call Black Hole Sun, and that's been a lot of fun. I'm finishing up the Blue Moon section of the campaign and about to move on to the Yellow Comet. That game continues to be real good. A lot longer than I thought it was going to be, but
sure.
you know, it's fun to play. It's fun to record. So go check that out on ChaseK Plays. And then I've got another podcast I do with our good friend of the show, Pierce Corshane. It's called Pilot Program. We watch the first episodes of every television show ever made. I think our next episode is going to come out sometime mid-July. Pretty excited about that one. We're going to be watching The Jeffersons, 1970s television show.
Awesome.
That'll be really exciting to me. I loved that show as a kid. So go check that out. shows.acast.com/pilot program. See all the previous episodes we've done, and then look forward to the new one.
Very cool, man. Thanks for the conversation. Thanks for hanging out.